Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar this afternoon. Today we're going to review distinction designations and how they're awarded for outstanding achievement based on performance on certain indicators. We'll start off with a review of distinctions before we transition to how they're calculated and awarded. So what is a distinction designation? Well, a distinction designation acknowledges districts and campuses for outstanding achievement based on the outcomes of several performance indicators. Distinction designations are awarded for achievement in several areas and are based on performance relative to a group of campuses of similar type, size, grade span, and student demographics. This is also called your campus comparison group, and I'll review how your comparison group is created shortly. Districts and campuses that receive accountability ratings of A, B, C, or D are eligible to earn distinction designations. For 2019, distinction designations are awarded in one of the following areas: academic achievement in English language arts reading, academic achievement in mathematics, academic achievement in science, academic achievement in social studies, top 25% comparative academic growth, top 25% comparative closing the gaps, and post-secondary readiness district and campus. This is awarded for districts in addition to campuses. So districts, charter schools, and campuses receiving an F or not rated rating are not eligible for distinction designations. Campuses that do not serve any grade level for which STAR assessments are administered are paired with another campus in the same district for accountability purposes. So paired data are not used for distinction designation indicators. Therefore, paired campuses cannot earn a distinction. Now, this only affects campuses that are paired. So this would be like a kinder through grade 2 campus for which there was no STAR assessment given. Those campuses are paired with a feeder campus, and they cannot earn a distinction designation. Campuses evaluated under alternative education accountability provisions are not eligible for distinction designations too. So the distinction designation report that I'm going to talk about shortly shows one of the following labels for each distinction designation. The first would be a distinction earned. A district or campus that is rated A, B, C, or D and meets the criteria for the distinction designation receives this label. I'll review the criteria for each distinction shortly. Next is no distinction earned, and this is for when a district or campus is rated F or does not meet the criteria for the distinction designation. Last is not eligible, and that's the label for when a district or campus does not have results for the distinction designation, or is rated not rated, or is evaluated by alternative education accountability provisions, or is a campus paired with the feeder campus for accountability. You can view parent-friendly information on our website, txschools.gov, for accountability ratings and distinction designations. This is where parents and the public can view easy-to-understand information on the accountability system and download campus and district reports. We also maintain a website for educators and administrators at tea.texas.gov/2019 accountability.aspx. This site displays detailed information, data tables, and has resources for educators and administrators to understand why distinction designations were awarded. This presentation will focus on the data reports and elements shown through this website. On the 2019 Accountability Ratings website, you can download and view reports for a campus or a district. Once a campus or a district is chosen, you can view either accountability reports, such as a report, for example, on the accountability domains, or a report regarding distinction designations. And this presentation will focus on those options for distinction designations. So let's do a live demo of how this will work to pull up a distinction designation through our website. So on our 2019 Accountability Reports website, I can search for a campus or a district report. I'm going to focus on a campus. So I would select campus name, and then I can type in, for example, a campus that I want to view data on. You can follow along with me, or you can select your own campus if you want to view the data tables. I'm going to look at Katy and then search, and I'm going to, in this presentation, look at, for example, Katy Junior High and Katy ISD. I want to review a report, not for accountability, but in this scenario, a distinction designation report. When I click on View Report, I can then see distinction designations for the campus that I selected, and I can see whether or not the campus earned a distinction or did not earn a distinction. So distinction designations are awarded for achievement in several areas and are based on performance relative to a group of similar campuses. And that's called the campus comparison group. So before we get into how distinctions are awarded, we need to review how a comparison group is created. Each campus in Texas is assigned to a unique comparison group comprised of Texas schools that are most similar to it. To determine the campus comparison group, each campus is identified by school type and then grouped with 40 other campuses from anywhere in Texas that are most similar. There is no limit to the number of comparison groups to which a campus may be a member of. It's possible for a campus to be a member of no comparison groups other than its own, or a member of several comparison groups. The characteristics used to determine campus comparison groups include the grade level served, the size of the campus, the percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged, the mobility rate, the percentage of English learners at that campus, the percentage of students receiving special education services, and the percentage of students enrolled in early college high school programs. Note that the characteristics used to construct the campus comparison groups include those defined in state statute and others that are statistically relevant to performance. Additional information on campus comparison groups can be found in Appendix E of the 2019 Accountability Manual. So as I mentioned earlier, you can view accountability and distinction designation data on the 2019 Accountability Ratings page. So underneath the distinction designation section, you can find options to select your campus comparison group. And this comparison group will be unique to your particular campus that you select. School administrators find that campus comparison groups are useful for comparing performance at their school with peer campuses across the state. So this is an example of a campus comparison group for an actual campus in Texas. So once selected from the 2019 page, your campus comparison group will be displayed. In the first section, we see the report header that displays the campus and district name, the campus type, and the campus number. Section 2 on the columns indicates and displays the grade level served, the total number of students, the percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged, the percentage of English learners, the mobility rate, percentage of students enrolled in an early college high school program, and the percentage of students receiving special education services. The campus that you select for your comparison group will highlight your campus at the very top in gray highlighting, and then display in section 3 the listing of the 40 other campuses from anywhere in Texas that are most similar to you. This is your campus comparison group report. So now that we reviewed how campus comparison groups are created, we can review each of the 7 distinction designations and how they're awarded. We'll begin with the academic achievement distinction in English language arts reading. So an academic achievement distinction designation for reading is awarded to campuses for outstanding achievement in English language arts reading based on outcomes of several performance indicators. So who is eligible? Again, campuses that are assigned an A, B, C, or D rating. The student groups used for this would be the performance of the all student groups only. So on the left-hand side, we have all of our academic achievement ELA reading indicators that are used to evaluate performance for this distinction. So you'll notice that the STAR performance data for grades 3 through 8 and the end of course exams evaluates performance at the master's grade level, for example. On the right-hand side is the minimum size criteria. For example, attendance rate. Minimum size for attendance rate indicators is based on the total days in membership. The minimum size criteria for our assessments, we're talking about STAR, AP, IB, SAT, and or the ACT test. Minimum size for assessments is 10 students for each of those assessments. The minimum size for our participation indicators is as follows. For AP, IB, minimum size is 10 students enrolled in grades 11 and 12. For advanced dual credit course completion, we're looking at 10 students in grades 9 through 12 who complete at least one course. And for SAT, ACT participation, the minimum size is 10 reported annual graduates. These are all of our indicators for academic achievement in reading, language arts, and our minimum size criteria. So how is this achievement distinction awarded? So step one would be determine the campus's performance on each applicable indicator and for which it has data. Step two would be to compare that particular campus's performance on each indicator within the campus comparison group. And step three is determine if the campus is in the top 25% of its campus comparison group for those indicators for which it has data on. Now for high schools in K through 12, this distinction would be awarded if it's in the top quartile for 33% or more of all the indicators for which they have data. Middle schools, junior highs, and elementaries must be in the top quartile for 50% or more of all indicators for which they have data. This methodology also applies to academic achievement distinctions in math, science, and social studies. I'll talk about those shortly. But continuing on with ELA reading, how is this calculated? So here's an example of how we would calculate this for an example high school to illustrate the methodology. We have 10 indicators with data available to be used for this distinction. For example, we have attendance rate data, we have English 1 performance, AP, IB, SAT participation, average SAT score, average ACT score. All of the available data that we have is displayed. So step one is we determine the performance at the high school on this particular campus on each of the indicators that we have. So our attendance rate for our example high school is 93.3. Our SAT participation rate for SAT ACT is 90%. Our average SAT score for reading and writing is 1079, and so on. Step two is to compare performance of our high school to campuses in our 40-member campus comparison group and see if the performance at our high school ranks within the top quartile, or Q1, or second quartile, Q2, third quartile, Q3, or the fourth quartile, Q4 for performance. Now you can do this by rank ordering performance for each indicator in the comparison group. Now this has already been done for us, and we can see that our high school data is displayed for each of the indicators within the campus comparison group. For example, our attendance rate at our high school compared to others in our campus comparison group is in the fourth quartile, or Q1. Our English 1 performance at our high school at 8% is in the Q3, or third quartile, within the campus comparison group. Our average SAT score for reading and writing at 1079 is in the top quartile, Q1, within the campus comparison group. Lastly, we determined the number of indicators that are in the top quartile, or Q1, of performance at our high school within the campus comparison group. So the results show us that we have performance in 4 out of 10 indicators that are at Q1. So remember back to step 3 on our methodology slide. In order for a distinction to be earned at the high school or the K through 12, it must be in the top quartile, Q1, for 33% or more of all the indicators for which they have data. So with performance in 4 out of the 10 indicators in Q1, or 4 out of 10, 40%, that means that our campus scores above the 33% cut point for the distinction, and that means that a distinction is earned for our high school in ELA reading. This is a report of an actual distinction designation for a campus for 2019. So at the top in section 1, the report header displays the campus and district name, the campus type, and the number. Section 2 displays the academic achievement distinction for reading ELA and all of our indicators that I just mentioned. Section 3 lists the campus's performance on each of the applicable indicators for which it has data available. Section 4 lists the campus performance for each indicator within the comparison group and states to what quartile the performance places within, Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4. You'll notice that green shading indicates performance at the top quartile or Q1. Section 5 states that the campus outcome and the calculation used to determine distinction designations. So let's look at our example here. We have a junior high campus. We have data on 6 different indicators. We see the indicator score, and then we see how this campus performed against its campus comparison group and whether or not that particular indicator scores within Q1, Q2, Q3, or quartile 4, Q4. The total count would be 3 indicators out of 6 that are in the top quartile. So 3 out of 6 indicators in quartile 1. 3 out of 6 is 50%. In order to get a distinction for this middle school or for the junior high, we have to have at least 50% or higher of indicators at Q1. So 50% or higher, this example, junior high had 50%, meaning in section 6, our designation label is distinction designation earned. Section 7 would list any additional notes regarding the distinction designation. For example, what happens for blank values, and that would be, a blank value would be an indicator for which there is no data available. At the junior high, there is no data available, for example, on English 2 performance or the end of course test. Okay, next let's look at the academic achievement in mathematics. The academic achievement distinction designation for mathematics is awarded for campuses for outstanding achievement in math based on the outcomes of several performance indicators. Who is eligible? Again, campuses that are assigned an A, B, C, or D rating are eligible for this distinction. And for our student groups, we're looking at the performance of the all students group only. Here are my academic achievement distinction indicators. Our indicators are on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side is our minimum size criteria. It's very similar for the attendance rate, like we just had for reading. For our assessments for STAR, AP, IB, SAT, and ACT, we're looking for 10 students for each assessment. And our participation rate indicators are listed below for AP, IB, advanced dual credit courses, Algebra 1 by grade 8 participation, and SAT, ACT participation, minimum size. The methodology is similar to our academic achievement distinction in reading. Again, what we do is we determine the campus's performance on each applicable indicator, compare that to the comparison group, and determine the number of indicators in quartile 1. This is an example of an academic achievement distinction for math for an actual campus in Texas. Section 1 displays the header for the campus and district. Section 2 displays all of the mathematics indicators for the distinction in math. Section 3 would list this particular campus's performance for each applicable indicator that it has data available for. And section 4 lists that campus's performance for each indicator within the campus comparison group and states what quartile the performance places within. And you'll notice that green shading indicates performance for that indicator in Q1, or the top quartile for performance. And section 5 states the campus outcome and the calculation used to determine distinction designations. So let's look at the report. This is for mathematics. At this junior high campus, we have indicator data available on 7 indicators, for which 5 placed in the top quartile of performance within the campus comparison group. So 5 out of 7 is 71%. In order for a middle school to receive a distinction designation in math, it has to be at 50% or higher for indicators for which it has data available in the top quartile. At 71%, this campus is higher than the 50% threshold. So in section 6, the distinction designation is distinction earned for mathematics. And section 7 lists additional notes regarding this particular calculation for the distinction designation. Next is science. The academic achievement distinction designation for science is awarded for campuses for outstanding achievement in science based on the outcomes of several performance indicators. Again, campuses who have a B, C, or D rating are eligible, and we're looking at all students for this particular distinction. Our indicators for science are on the left-hand side, and our minimum size criteria are on the right-hand side for the attendance rate, for our assessments, and for our participation indicators. Looking at an actual report for distinction designations in science for a middle school, we can see the following. We see at the very top, the header will display the campus and district name, the campus type, and the campus number. Section 2 on the left-hand side lists all of these science indicators to evaluate this distinction. Section 3 lists that particular campus's performance on those indicators. And section 4 lists how that campus performance places within the campus comparison group. And green shading, again, highlights performance in the top quartile. And section 5 states the outcome for this particular distinction designations. So for this junior high, we're looking at indicators for performance on the left-hand side, section 2, and we see that 2 out of 2 are in the top quartile for performance. And these are for indicators at this junior high for which it has data available. You'll notice that at the junior high, there is no data available for the end of course bio test. So this campus has 2 indicators of data that are available, and it's scored within the top quartile for these 2 particular indicators in its campus comparison group. 2 out of 2 is 100%. The distinction target for middle schools is 50% or higher. So at 100%, we see in section 6 that the distinction designation label is distinction earned. And section 7 would list any additional notes regarding this particular distinctions calculation. Next is social studies. For social studies, we're looking at, again, social studies indicators. Who is eligible? We're looking at campuses assigned an A, B, C, or D rating, and we're looking at the all students group for this distinction. Our social study indicators are on the left-hand side, and our minimum size criteria for the attendance rate, assessments, and our participation indicators are listed on the right-hand side. This is an actual distinction designation report for a junior high in Texas. At the top, we have the header that displays the campus and district name, campus type, and number. Section 2 would list that social studies indicators for this distinction. Section 3 lists our particular example junior high the indicators for which it has data available and the score. Section 4 would list that campus's performance for each of those indicators and whether or not it's in quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, or quartile 4. And section 5 would state the campus's outcome for this distinction. So for this junior high, for social studies, we have 2 indicators of data available, and this campus places in the top quartile for both. So 2 out of 2, or 100%. The distinction target for middle schools is 50% or higher. So in section 6, we have a distinction earned for this junior high campus. And section 7 would list any additional notes regarding this distinction designation. Next, we have a distinction for the top 25% for comparative academic growth. So this distinction designation would be for outstanding academic growth, would be awarded for campuses whose school progress Part A domain scaled score is rank ordered and in the top 25% or Q1 of campuses in its comparison group. So all we're doing on this one is rank ordering the domain A scaled score within the comparison group. And who is eligible for this? Campuses evaluated on school progress Part A and assigned a rating of A, B, C, or D. The methodology for this distinction is as follows. So campuses are arranged in descending order by school progress Part A, that scaled score. If the school progress Part A scaled score for a campus is within the top quartile of its comparison group, then it earns a distinction for the top 25% academic growth. So this is an example of an actual campus distinction designation for comparative academic growth. At the top, our header will display the campus and district name and the campus number. Section 2 lists the campus comparison group listing arranged in descending order by the school progress Part A scaled score. Section 3 would list the academic growth scaled score for each campus. Now you'll notice again that this is the scaled score for the campus comparison group, and this is arranged in descending order. You'll notice too, the gray section would indicate any campus that falls within quartile 1 within the comparison group. Section 4 would list out that this campus is within the top quartile, or that gray shaded area, for their school progress Part A scaled score, so distinction earned. And section 5 would list any additional notes regarding this particular distinction designation calculation. Next is our top 25% for comparative closing the gaps performance. So a distinction designation for outstanding performance in closing student achievement gaps is awarded to campuses whose closing the gaps domain scaled score is ranked in the top 25% or Q1 of campuses in its comparison group. So who is eligible? Campuses evaluated on closing the gaps, on the closing the gaps domain and assigned an A, B, C, or D rating. The methodology is as follows. Campuses are arranged in descending order by their closing the gaps domain scaled score. If the closing the gap scaled score for a campus is in the top quartile of its comparison group, then it earns a distinction for closing student achievement gaps. We have another example of a campus that was awarded this distinction designation. At the top in section 1, the header will display the information for that particular campus. Section 2 has the campus comparison group listing, and this is arranged in descending order by the closing the gaps domain scaled score. Section 3 would list the campuses closing the gap scaled score for every single campus in the campus comparison group. Now you'll notice again, we have a gray shading would indicate that any campus within the gray area would be in the top quartile of performance. Section 4 lists that a distinction designation was earned. You can see that our campus highlighted in green falls within the top quartile, Q1, for campuses within the campus comparison group, which is why a distinction was earned for closing the gaps. And section 5 would list any additional notes regarding distinction designations calculations. Lastly, we have post-secondary readiness. This distinction is awarded for both districts and campuses that receive A, B, C, or D, an A, B, C, or D rating and are eligible for this distinction designation for academic performance in post-secondary readiness. So multi-campus districts and campuses assigned an A, B, C, or D rating are eligible. Single campus districts and charter schools that share the same 2019 performance data as its only campus, the campus is eligible to earn a post-secondary readiness distinction designation, but the district or charter is not eligible to earn the post-secondary readiness distinction designation. For student groups, we're looking at the all student groups only. Our post-secondary readiness indicators are listed on the left-hand side, and the minimum size criteria for all students is just the minimum size of 10. Our methodology is as follows. For elementary and middle schools, they must be in the top quartile for 50% or more of all indicators for which they have data. High schools and K through 12s must be in the top quartile Q1 for 33% or more of all indicators for which they have data. And for districts, a district must have at least 55% of its campus's post-secondary indicators in the top quartile Q1. Districts with fewer than 5 campus-level post-secondary indicators are not eligible for this distinction. This is an example of how this would work for a middle school. Section 1 displays the header information. Section 2 is the post-secondary readiness indicators used for this distinction. Section 3 would list out the indicator scores for this particular campus. And Section 4 lists that campus's performance within the campus comparison group. And green shading would indicate performance in Q1 or the top quartile. Section 5 lists the campus's outcome and the calculation used to determine this distinction. For this particular example, junior high, we have 2 data points available. So 2 out of 2 for top quartile of performance is 100%. The target for a middle school would be 50% or higher. Therefore, a distinction is earned for this middle school. Section 7 would list any notes regarding this distinction designation. This is an example of a distinction awarded to a district. Section 1 would display the campus or the district information. Section 2 would list the post-secondary readiness indicators by campus type. Section 3 would list the district's number of post-secondary readiness indicators in the top quartile or Q1. Section 4 lists the district's number of eligible post-secondary readiness indicators. And Section 5 would state the outcome and calculation used to determine this distinction. So for this district, there are 11 total indicators for post-secondary readiness that are evaluated. That's the denominator. The numerator would be the number of indicators in quartile 1 within the comparison group. So 6 out of 11 would be 55%. The distinction for the distinction designation for the district would be 50%, 55% or higher. Therefore, distinction designation is earned. I talked about distinction designations on the 2019 Accountability Ratings webpage. If you view distinction designation information on txschools.gov, this is an example of how the information would be displayed. Any campus or district that you select on txschools.gov would display the following. On the left-hand side on Section 1 would display the 2019 overall rating label and score. Section 2 would display the 2018 and 2019 rating label and score. Section 3 would display the rating label and score in each of the 3 domains for your particular campus or district that you select. And section 4 towards the bottom would indicate if there is a distinction designation that was earned. And you can view this by looking for the green highlighting, or not earned by viewing the indicator for the red highlighting. This was a quick overview on distinction designations for 2019. Additional information on distinction designations is available in the 2019 Accountability Manual. You can find that by going to our Performance Reporting Resources page or to our A through F resources page. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up for our Performance Reporting Weekly Bulletin. You can go to the TEA homepage and click on Sign Up for Updates at the top and select ours, Performance Reporting. If you have additional questions, please feel free to contact us either by email or phone. All of this information and reports are available on the 2019 Accountability Rating System webpage. And you can find all of this within the Performance Reporting homepage. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar this afternoon. I know everyone is very eagerly awaiting the TAPER report that will come out shortly. And I hope you can join us in December for our TAPER webinar, where we will review the 1819 TAPER report. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, and have a great week and have a happy Halloween.